Good evening, everybody. Let's get this meeting called to order. Special City Council meeting, Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. Heidi, can we start this off with a roll call and determination of quorum?
Nordstrom.
Here.
Solomon. Roberts. Stroman. Here. Armstrong.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Lehman.
Here.
Ham. Here. Evans. Here. Roseland. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Roberts isn't there. Who else is there? Lance.
Lance is chairing the meeting. Next on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve by Jones, second by Evans. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Next up, we have general public comment. Time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. No items will be added to the agenda per state statute for special meetings. I don't have any general public comments. We're going to go ahead and close the general public comment period. Next up, non-public hearing items 1 through 4. Open public comment for that. Seeing none, we're going to close that. Item number 1, City Council discussion of the Mayor's 2023 budget, and I'll open the floor to my colleagues. Laura, Mr. Nordstrom, did either of you have anything to say? Nobody's in queue.
I've got no additional comments.
Mr. Jones.
I just want some clarification on the new FTEs that are being presented in this budget.
Absolutely, Laura. The mayor was here to answer questions. I don't know where he went. What was that? Maybe you can direct your question to Pauline Sumption. Nope, she's shaking her head at me. Laura, do you mind if we come back to you and I'll have Mr. Jones start off here?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make a general comment and then comment about some of the specifics, if I may.
Of course.
Monday night, when the mayor officially presented his budget, although I wasn't here, I was watching and listening while I was in Washington State visiting family. One of the things that just jumps out off the page is the amount of dependence we have on sales tax for our budget. And when I talk to constituents about the importance of sales tax, and people sometimes grumble or complain a little bit about so many people or tourists or visitors or whatever, it's just vital that our constituents and the citizens of our town realize the importance that that sales tax dollar plays for us. 42% of the mayor's proposed budget comes from sales tax. And we know the cost of doing everything is going up, now exponentially more than expected. So every dollar that we get that doesn't have to come out of the pockets of the Rapid City taxpayers is a vitally important dollar. And so I really encourage people, pardon me, thank you. I really encourage people to think about that and the importance that events have in Rapid City, small events, big events. Literally every dollar that comes in for sales tax by a visitor is a dollar that we as the taxpayers of Rapid City don't have to replace. So I just encourage people to really think about that and how we take care of visitors and guests that come to town, continue to invite people to town, and celebrate what we have in Rapid City. Because if that sales tax dollar is not there, it has to come from somewhere else. It's not like the need for that dollar is going to go away. We still need services. We still need public safety. We still need our library. We still need our finance office. We still need everything. All those services are necessary, and with the growth of our community, the need for services continues to grow. So we want to make sure we appreciate the sales tax dollar, but also proceed with a spoonful of awareness and caution in knowing that our reliance so much on the sales tax dollar can be impacted should visitation and shopping and things fall apart. Not that that's likely to happen, but it's just something for us to remember. My next item, if I may, Chair, I still have time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The new FTEs that are requested in the budget. Sometimes governments get accused of just being hiring offices and just wanting to hire people. It's my opinion that the new hires that the mayor has brought forward to request, especially the grant writing folks, will most certainly pay for themselves and then some. I've done a lot of grant writing myself, and there's almost always something in the grant that states that the entity applying for the grant can charge off X amount of administrative fees to the grant. We get enough good grants written, these will pay more than pay for the hiring of these new folks. We're missing out on opportunities to get money for our programs here in Rapid City, and so I very much support the addition of these folks, because we need to go after money that's out there. Grant writing is a very tenuous process. It takes a lot of time, takes research, and so if we have good people doing it, we will certainly reap the benefits. I also believe that if these positions don't pan out like that, if they don't pay for themselves, then we really need to take a look at whether or not we need to keep them. Any new positions need to be valid and need to either support themselves financially or provide more and better service to the citizens of Rapid City. So since I didn't get to talk Monday, now you're hearing from me, so there I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Armstrong, the mayor is back if you'd like to direct a question to him.
Thank you. I just wanted just some clarification on the new positions that were coming into this budget, getting a number and like where they're from.
Okay. In mayor's office, we are adding one full-time FTE in the communications group to assist Daryl Shoemaker. There is, I've done some budgeting for preparation of the addition of a mayor's chief of staff, but I don't know that that won't be a swap where we give up one position and go for that position. We'll know a little bit more on that later. On Public Works, the request includes 2 project engineers, 0.75 of an employee for a right-of-way specialist, 1 GIS analyst, 2 traffic signal technicians, 3 street maintenance operators, and 3 equipment mechanics. In police, 6 new police officer positions. Parks, 3 new park maintenance workers and 1 project manager. Finance includes hiring previously unfilled and unfunded position, so it's equivalent to a new FTE, and this is for a chief accountant. And information technology is requesting 1 new IT analyst and 1 new IT technician.
Where does the grant writing goes under finance?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's I left that out on accident.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That will go under finance. It will be a division under finance. And that will be 3 FTEs, and then there will be management duties will be conducted from existing management in finance. So I think that's the total count.
Okay, so about 9 in Public Works, 5 in Finance, 2 under the Mayor's office, 6 new police officers, 4 in Parks, and 2 in IT. Do I have that right? Ish?
Yes, and the 4 in finance total, and then 2 IT, correct?
Okay. I'm done for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Mr. Stroman?
Thank you, Chair. As long as we're talking about FTEs, I'd like to go to finance first and ask a question of the finance director, please.
Absolutely.
Pauline, the staffing changes, filling the chief accountant vacancy, that's been vacant for more than 5 years, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, I definitely think we need to get that filled if possible.
If I might, we actually have somebody in that position now,
Okay.
and she's doing wonderful so far.
Oh, good. So the other thing is, we were having a conversation before the meeting today, and you were explaining some things to me about the Treasury report, which for July 2022, and I appreciate your explanation. I'm just wondering, do you have, we talked a little bit about best practices and checks and balances that you like to implement in your finance division. Do you have the staff that you need to do the best practices that you want to utilize, or does there need to be additional staffing so that you can implement those procedures?
If we were to go out and hire the 2 half-time FTEs that we still have, one in accounts payable and accounts receivable, I think we could shift duties to be able to make those best practices work. I don't know at this point if I would need additional staff, but definitely shifting some duties so that other people can, that and cross-training some, so that when one person is gone, another person can do their work for them.
I think that's all I have on the finance issue. And I'm not sure who to direct the community investments to.
Possibly the mayor would be best able to answer that.
Can I keep going?
Of course.
Okay. On the substantial increase in operating costs for the CARE campus, what is our agreement? We're sharing that with the county, is that true?
Yes, the agreement is that after all of the fees are recovered from insurance companies and people who pay for services there, and any grants from the state or federal government, then the city and county split the remaining balance. So our share of it is what's displayed.
And is that a 23% increase over the year, is that something you think is kind of a one-time increase? Or, I mean, it'll increase every year, I suppose, but does this seem extraordinary?
Well, it does seem extraordinary. I would note that in the last couple of years, we expected a larger increase, and they were able to hold the costs down. And so, like I said, it is kind of dependent on the other available money, including payments from clients or insurance companies. But, as far as trying to predict the future for this, we could confer more with the county, but I think that's all really dependent on probably dependent on a lot of things, including the homeless population growth, and even the weather could affect some of the usage of that building. But so it's unknown to me exactly how to accurately predict the increases in the future.
Is that 23% increase over the current year, what is that in terms of dollars approximately? Did you put that in somewhere? I probably missed it.
Yeah, I have it
While
somewhere.
you're looking, Mayor, I have a request from Councilwoman Armstrong. Can we speak into the mic? She's having a hard time hearing all of us.
Okay. The dollar increase over 2022 is about $215,000.
Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Stroman. Mr. Jones, I'll get back to you in a second. Mr. Nordstrom wanted to jump in. So Richie, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the mayor, please.
Of course.
Mayor, on these newly created positions, have you had an opportunity to develop job descriptions for them yet?
There are job descriptions for, I believe, all of the FTEs I mentioned, with the exception of the grant writing, and I'm not sure where where that process is at this moment. So I don't believe we have the job description completed or even the assignment to the pay scale at this point. Is that correct, Pauline, as far as you know?
I'm sorry, I missed that part. Assignment to what?
I don't believe we have them graded on the pay scale, and I don't believe we have the job descriptions completed yet, but Pauline may know otherwise.
No, you are correct, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Richie. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. I'm not sure if this is to the mayor or for our discussion, but if there were to be a chief of staff position created and someone hired, is that a change that we would discuss as a council before putting in place? Or is that something the mayor would just implement based on what the job duties are of that? And then my second question is, I'd like to know if we know the total amount of dollars in this proposed budget for homelessness. The mayor mentioned in his presentation that there's possibly 200 new homeless people in Rapid City coming from various areas, and I'm curious if there's a total number that we know of from all sources budgeted towards providing services to the homeless.
Well, that last question's a good one. I haven't done that. I haven't added all of the costs up, but I certainly can take a stab at that between now and the next meeting. What I could tell you specifically, pretty quickly, all of the dollars, the allotments that appear to be toward homeless service organizations and that sort of thing. I would have to make a guess on how much of paramedic time and police officer time is being spent. Typically, prior to Journey On and VOA, that was approximately half of their time. So I could take a stab at that and send that to you and the council.
That would be great, because I'm sure there's some obvious ones where money comes from, but there are some not so obvious that impact our budget as well, so thank you. And then, I don't know, Mayor, if you want to comment on the Chief of Staff?
Oh, what was I forget the question.
Chairman, may I?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if a Chief of Staff is created or
I get it.
that position comes forward, is that a managerial change that the mayor would implement, or would the council decide to go to that? That's a big addition for a chief of staff, because that's a very important role, different than anything we currently have now, from what I understand. So if we were to go to that, who would be involved in making the decision to actually do that?
Well, I believe if the council were to approve the budget and that item was in the budget, I believe then the mayor could add that position as soon as the job description and other arrangements had been made. However, I think in this particular case, especially since I'm in my last year of being mayor, that I would want to get buy-in from the city council to help, to have the city council help develop this and understand it, and so that we would implement it together.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Evans?
Well, I think the city council should, in the form of a resolution or an ordinance or whatever we need to do, we should endorse that idea of a chief of staff. I think at the same time, we should also endorse the idea of a raise for the mayor's salary, which I think is not realistic, nor it is even remotely competitive with the surrounding cities of similar size. I think we should also include a sustainability coordinator position, which the Citizens Committee has been clamoring for 10 years, and there's been no movement on that, and countless communities surrounding us have included that in their budgets, as have corporations, as have the colleges that are local. Also, I still have a problem with the arts contingency budget being flatlined for the past decade at $100,000 when other budgets have gone up by as much as, well, 100% in some cases. I think we need to increase that by a certain amount, and I would suggest we take the statute-driven entities out of that, separate them, and somehow streamline the process by which those entities are funded, because there truly are, for the most part, recreational activities from the city that provides a service to the citizens and have for, in the case of the city band, over 100 years. And so I think the city council could come forth with either a resolution or whatever we need to do, and maybe we could get guidance from our legal department as to how we would make that handle. But I think I agree with the mayor. It would be in our best interest to have this instigated from the council members to add that position, which would allow him to provide some more of the services to the citizens that a mayor could, and less of the day-to-day detail work, putting out fires at departments and whatnot, that I think he's spending more than his fair share of time doing. So that would be my suggestion. I guess that's all for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Stroman?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with at least half of what the maestro said, and that's the first half. I'm not sure about the rest of it, but I absolutely believe that the council should be working with the mayor's office to create this chief of staff position and to adequately fund that. The job has gotten very big, the mayor's job, and I also agree that there needs to be a substantial increase in the mayor's salary, and I know that this mayor would not want to, spearhead something like that. I mean, but I think it's incumbent upon the council to do that. I have a vague memory of some former mayors many years ago making the same salary that the current mayor makes. And I look at the classified, when the city salaries come out, I look at what people are making, and the mayor makes less than lots of people who are just not even directors, but they're assistants in different areas. And I think that the amount of responsibility that we put on the mayor justifies a substantial increase in the mayor's salary. And as far as the other things that Mr. Evans talked about, I'm open to those things, but I'm also concerned about, I don't want to grow government too much, but I do think that the things that in the finance department, I think it's necessary that we have adequate staffing in there. I think that they've been working shorthanded. I think the mayor's office needs additional staffing. I think it's been shorthanded. And one place I'm not at all shy about growing government is in the police and fire. And if we can get some more public first responders and public safety people in there, I think that, well, last night, I think Mr. Lehman would probably say, yeah, I mean, he'd probably agree with me. It's getting to the point where we need as much as possible as we can get for first responders, police and fire, ambulance, those things. So those are areas where I have no problem with growing government to some extent.
That's an additional 6 on top of the 23 empty positions we currently have. Is that correct, Mayor?
That's correct. Last I knew, a week or two ago, there was 21 openings, and this is an additional 6. So it's almost an academic exercise at this point. We're still not able to hire the new police officer positions that were authorized in 2022. So it's a struggle.
Vice Mayor?
After Mr. Nordstrom, please.
Oh, sure.
Richie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Pauline.
Of course.
Pauline, do we still use the grades and step scales on our salary? Hopefully you understand the question.
Yes, I do. I believe that that was changed up a little bit at the end of last year. For the non-union positions, it's basically one big scale, but that is also being reviewed by Gallagher with that non-union salary study that they're doing. The mayor's salary is also included in that wage study, so that could address some of your guys' concerns. Union and police and fire, while we have steps and grades, if they get a step, it's based on what is negotiated. They don't automatically get a step plus matrix adjustments, and lately they've been electing to take the matrix adjustments as a whole to increase the overall scale versus just taking a step.
Pauline, would you suggest that we do a weight on the Gallagher study before we make any adjustments to the mayor's salary? I want to see this supported, but if we've got a current wage, a step and grade scale in place now, I want to make sure we're complying with that as well.
Well, from my perspective, this, because it is a non-union position, I would probably wait like we've waited on the other non-union positions, because more than likely, if there are any salary adjustments required off of this salary study, we'll have to more than likely do a supplement for those wage increases if it can't be absorbed within the various department budgets.
Thank you. And then the other question I have for you is the new position that's being considered, for, number one, the chief of staff, and then the other one is the grant writer. Will those be in the non-union salary study?
The chief of staff definitely should be in the non-union pay scale. There's still time to add that to the non-union wage study if that is the direction that the city wants to go, because we are just meeting with them for the first time this week. And the same could be said for the grant writers. It's going to depend on the job description and what their requirements are, if they're going to be a union or a non-union position. We do have to have job descriptions done before we can have them evaluated, but it's something that can be done. And I do know that when I met with Gallagher, I did make them aware that we're looking at creating this grants division within the city. So it would impact some people's current job descriptions as well as possibly the new ones too.
Very good. I can go on standby. I'm okay with the standby, just as long as we fully understand that the everything's going to be reported on the Gallagher study. So I can wait.
Thank you, Mr. Nordstrom. Mr. Ham? I don't think you're turned on, Jesse.
All right, staying on this time. Okay, my question probably is directed to Pauline, but you'll have to correct me if I'm missing the right person here. I was trying to discuss the concept of the 6 new police officers, and Mr. Mayor and Mr. Nordstrom partly touched on my question already. Since we have 21 empty positions and we're looking at getting 6 more, has there been a step and grade scale assessment of late for those positions, or is that a concept that has already been discussed?
Pauline will address that.
So they started a new contract in 2022, and the initial adjustment in January was a 10% increase. And then that was a matrix adjustment. And then they also got the 7.9% COLA adjustment July 1. Part of that had already been negotiated. I believe 3% had already been negotiated in their contract. So they got that plus the 4.9%. January 1 of 23, they're expected to get another 5% matrix adjustment. That is to bring their starting pay up to closer to market and to make it more competitive, especially with those in the surrounding area. Hopefully, we're hopeful that it will help, but sometimes it's not the money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. We're going to go to Joel Andine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as a little bit of history, when I first started with the city, the mayor was actually on the non-union scale and was paid equivalent to a director position. And then I don't remember the exact year, but Alan Hanks was mayor, and the council decided to remove the mayor from the scale. And I'm not going to say there hasn't been a mayoral raise since then, but essentially the mayor's salary has remained stagnant since probably 2007 or 6, 7, or 8. And because really at that point, the mayor would have to come to the council and ask for a raise every year, and so it politicized it. Mayors have chosen not to do that, and so that's why the mayor's salary has fallen behind so many of the other city employee salaries. Actually, again, when I first started, the mayor was on the non-union scale and also got whatever raised the non-union or scale adjustments. So it did tend to keep up. But the council made that policy decision at that time, and you can kind of see the result of it now. So I throw that out because that's the way it used to be, and it might be something, if you're looking at addressing the mayor's salary, it might be a way to do it, and a way to do it that would depoliticize it a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Landine. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just so we're really clear on this police thing, we need 21 more officers to get us to where we need to be for right now. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes, for 2022.
Okay, so we're short 21 police officers. Anyone wonder why they're tired and burned out? It's because we're short 21. And so the then request then is to add 6 because the growth in the city, the growth in the need for services, et cetera. So theoretically, that would respond to that need. And like you said, it's kind of just an exercise, but we need 21 to get us up where we should be, and then 6 for the growth. If I were to explain it to someone that way, would I be correct?
Mr. Chair?
Of course, Mayor.
Yes, in a nutshell, yes, you're correct. The RCPD growth plan, based on a workload assessment that was done last year, has a goal of getting our police officers to be in line with the national average as far as workload for each officer. And as of last year, our officers were approximately double the national workload as far as calls for service per officer. So in 2022, we added 12 new positions. Then the plan going forward was to add 6 new positions a year until the calls for service workload came down in the average range. So now, to your question, we have 21 openings and we're still adding new openings, and does it even matter? I think it matters because the police department and the city of Rapid City is trying everything it can to be creative with recruiting, hiring. All the hiring practices have changed. Most recently, the police department has discussed changing their experience requirement from 4 years to 2 years. because they recognized that they were passing over many good officers who had less than 4 years of experience. So all of these things kind of help. So it sounds like it's almost an unwinnable dilemma, but we all have hope that we're going to be able to catch up one day. And that's why we want to secure those positions into the future to make sure we don't overspend these resources and ruin them, because that also has an effect on attrition as well.
So if we were to magically hire all of these new officers, and maybe this is to Pauline, if I may, Chairman, are we budgeted for a full staff like this?
For police and fire and public works, to an extent, we are budgeting for some vacancy throughout the year, but not at this level. So for the majority, it should still be okay,
Okay,
based on historical attrition rates.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Stroman, you look like you're going to ring in.
Well, we could pass a resolution that has former retired police chiefs have to come back into the service.
Yeah.
So we've got Steve and Carl, and I don't know who else.
He might be looking for a retirement job come June.
One
so-
way to give myself a raise, isn't it?
And so I guess I would like the mayor to make whatever adjustments would be required to bring the mayor's salary. I mean, in the email that the mayor sent out about the increases, the notable department budget increases on August 11th, it does not include the mayor's increase, which is, I think, with Joel's, the city attorney's explanation, is long overdue. And so I would like to see whatever needs to be adjusted in the budget to account for that. And then I would like to make a comment on the public works issues. There's in that same email, the mayor writes that there's public works as one of the city departments that's directly affected by the recent growth of our city and region. Several additional FTEs are needed to maintain current service levels. And it has 2 project engineers, a .75 FTE right-of-way specialist, 1 GIS analyst, 2 traffic signal technicians, 3 street maintenance operators, 3 equipment mechanics. I would need some further explanation either from the Public Works Director or for the city engineer as to why those particular additions are requested, because, and this has been going on. I've been sitting on the Public Works Committee for well, the entire time I've been on the council, and we get requests to approve these large projects, which are very, very expensive construction projects or new equipment, and on a regular basis, we're asked to approve an additional 5 to 10% fee to have an independent engineering firm consult or oversee the whether it's installation of equipment or a project. And I guess I'd like to see more of the city engineers taking ownership of some of that, or else putting it in the bid, having the vendors put it in the bid, because, and maybe that will just increase the bids, but I would think that they would, okay, we'll talk about the flocculator, because I know Pat Jones likes to say that word, but flocculator, you know it. Flocculator. But, so this is a $10 million piece of equipment, and we were asked to approve a consultant to oversee the installation of this, and to me, that should be the vendor's responsibility, or we should have someone in the city engineer's office that can oversee that. The vendor should warrant the installation, or I think it's an expense that we should be able to work around somehow. And, you know, I'm new at this, but it's getting to be a quite substantial expense every time we have a large project. Same thing with the Sheridan Lake Road project. It's a $20 million project, and then we have, I think it was close to $1 million to a consultant to oversee this and to plan it. And I know when the summit was built, we had someone else to oversee the pilings and things like that. So I guess that's where I'm at there. I'm hesitant to grow the government in those areas, and I'm sure Dale's going to educate me, but I'd be happy to hear it. I yield.
Mr. Tech, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Those are great comments, Alderman Stroman, and that's something that every community deals with every day when it comes to managing projects. You know, as the mayor pointed out, certainly with the police department and the inability to hire, you know, the 21 openings that we have, we're kind of in the same situation. So just bandwidth for large projects coming online, our organization can't expand and contract that quickly to be able to address those large projects. So we do rely on consultants. A little clarification on the claroflocculator project. It's not a piece of equipment, it's a facility. So it is everything from electrical, mechanical, concrete, foundations, metalwork. It's not just a piece of equipment. It's like building a civic center, but it's not as fancy. It's a big concrete tank with a bunch of mechanical equipment, electrical equipment, so on and so forth. So it's a very technical facility. It's not a piece of equipment. So, and we don't have that expertise in-house. We don't have structural engineers in-house to be able to certify what is being built. And obviously you do want a third party watching over the contractor and making sure that the city is getting what they paid for. You know, the hope is that, yes, the contractor will do the right thing, and they do. They're dedicated to doing that, but we've got to have quality control over what's going on out there so these facilities do make it to their, you know, 50 to 75-year design lives. I think you mentioned traffic signal technicians earlier in your comments. Just some commentary on that. We have two traffic signal technicians, and we've had that number of traffic signal technicians for the last 30 years. As you know, our city has grown. Every thing that not only our growth, but the DOT, we are responsible to operate and maintain all of the DOT's traffic signals within the city of Rapid City. Obviously, with the new diverging diamond interchange that's occurring, being constructed up on La Crosse Street, that is a much more intricate signal system than we have anywhere else in the city, and our folks will be responsible for that. So we've reached a point where the two folks that we have can't keep up, and so those are necessary positions to be able to do that. And there's no one else we can rely on. There's not a contractor or another agency that we can partner with to do that. We're the only game in town. So if you've got other questions or comments, I'd certainly love to address them right now. I overheard, Mr. Jones, what you were saying. The three street operators, once again, we've got more miles of streets to sweep, plow roads, fill potholes. The three mechanics actually provide service to many city departments. We have our equipment maintenance cost center, so these three mechanics support solid waste. They support the police department heavily. We work on all their equipment. So once again, as we grow, we need to add people to handle the additional equipment that we have, the needs of the community. And mechanics right now are a tough hire. It's very competitive out there, and we need to get more people on board to be able to provide the service that we need to for our citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Tech. Mr. Stroman, did you have anything further?
Just briefly, thank you.
Of course.
and, you know, I can certainly see the signal technicians and the maintenance operators and equipment mechanics, because if our equipment doesn't work, we're in a tough spot. I mean, whether it's snow removal or dump trucks or out at the landfill. But I have talked to some people that have worked in the industry and asked them, I mean, do you think that we're using our resources properly on some of when we have continually using outside third parties to, and they just said that some of them, you know, well, I guess all of them that I talked to said that they feel like those positions could be, or those tasks could be handled in-house to some extent. They're people who have loads of experience and they know how things work, and they said that it would be might be better to have, rather than increasing the staff, give the remaining staff a set of measurable goals, and rather than just, I don't know, he said measurable goals, and so I still have a little bit of trouble with adding additional engineers when we spend a lot of money on engineering projects that I don't know that it's even, if it's necessary to have a third party hired it adds another 5 or 10% of the costs, and all the projects cost more, everything costs more now. So it just increases the financial burden, I guess, and so I have to think about that one. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stroman. Ms. Armstrong, you had asked to be put in line?
Yes, thank you. If I could direct my questions to the mayor, my first question to the mayor.
Of course.
Mr. Mayor, I should have asked this on Monday evening, but back in 2018, I think we created the budget based on priority-based budgeting with Sean Kerbanoff. Is that correct?
Correct, based on those principles, yes.
Right. And then so the mayor and the directors, city council, we also had a community survey go out as well. Are we doing priority-based budgeting? Are we continuing that practice?
No, we are not. We still have the principles in mind, but as far as priority-based budgeting with score sheets, multiple spreadsheets, employees' time for various tasks and all of that recording, we're not doing that. But we are, I mean, we've still learned something from the priority-based budgeting principles, and we still use those, but I can't call this a priority-based budget because that is a product that someone sells out there.
Right, and that was a snapshot in time. I think we can all agree that we're not the same community that we were in 2018. Okay, thank you. And then going back to the grant writer, well, actually, let me, another question is these new full-time employees, they will start January 2023, correct?
Correct.
So we have time between now and then to get the job descriptions and whether things are union or non-union pay scales between now and then, correct?
Absolutely.
So with the grant writer, obviously in the job descriptions, we want to have goals and objectives to make sure that obviously we're covering the cost of this employee or that department or that sub-department, but obviously we want to make that over and above what their salaries are. So how do we know what their measurable goals will be, or is that what we're going to determine between now and January?
I believe we'll be putting all that information together between now and January. We have identified a number of cities that use a grant writing function such as this that we can get help from. And, you know, the general goal would be to have these employees not only pay for themselves with the existing grants, but hopefully have them pay for themselves with additional grants that the city may receive in the future.
Great. Wonderful. And then going back to the chief of staff and having city council involvement, I do think that's very important because there will be a change of guards next July, and I don't think we want to hire somebody between January and then with the new mayor and new council. They're only here for 6 months and then we kick them to the curb. That's just a thought that came to me. I had one more. Oh, Mr. Evans had mentioned a sustainability coordinator. Is that something that this body is interested in pursuing? I know Mr. Evans is, I am, but I don't know what my other colleagues are thinking.
I think I can answer for the rest of the dais. We would be curious to know exactly what that position entails and maybe a job description. Sustainability is a pretty broad category.
Right. And that's another thing that we could potentially address between now and January 2023. Okay, those are my questions and comments for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. On the sustainability coordinator, I am meeting with the sustainability committee next week to discuss the coordinator. That'll be the first contact I've had with that committee to discuss this particular position, and I imagine they will have some examples of other cities that use this. And but I think myself, I align more with staff on this, that we should develop, at least in concept, the sustainability program before we add personnel to it. There are some cases where these type of programs can be just as cumbersome as they are helpful, and I think this is one that needs to be done carefully. But we have no objection to looking into it, and if the council desires, we could certainly go down that road and add it. But I think it'd be beneficial to have more information at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Stroman?
Can I ask a question of the Vice President?
Of course.
Bill, did you have a number in mind? You talked about the Arts Contingency Fund, and it's flat from the same funding as it has been for quite a few years. Did you have something in mind that you were going to suggest that we consider, or I guess that's, I didn't want to let that go.
Well, obviously, every group, every organization, every department in the city has had expenses go up for the last decade, and arts organizations are no different. And to starve them out by flatlining their budget for a decade is, I think, it's kind of a hostile act, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of these organizations touch a lot of people, and a lot of people participate in them. And we've got to be realistic about the fact that because of that community support, we should honor the citizens' wishes. I mean, to the same extent goes with the sustainability person. If that's done right, just like the grants writer, that person is going to save us money. Now, a sustainability person can be whatever we choose for it to be. And we can write that, and I think I gave the mayor a job description maybe a year and a half ago or so. And now he's going to meet with sustainability people. There are people out there that have different opinions of what it is, but it's not a recycling person. It could be a person that works with the landscape ordinance to make sure our streets are receiving shade from trees. to make the city less hostile in a heated, a global warming world. And so as far as that goes, I think that position can pay for itself. But these other positions, the statute-funded groups, which there are 4 arts organizations and 1 historical one, they were written into law in 1935, and then the ordinance was revived sometime around 10 or 15 years ago, long before I was on the council. And it's a priority of the city. And Laura talked about priority-based budgeting. And when we did that a few years ago, arts and culture came in number 5 out of 11 or 13 categories, I don't remember. And so it's not unimportant to the citizens. So I don't believe flatlining that reflects the wishes of our constituency. And I think we've got to be, obviously, some people feel that art should never be funded at all by communities. The reality is, over history, kingdoms, governments have funded the arts forever. That's just the way it is. And there are the lucky few organizations in the country, like the Boston Symphony, or these gigantic organizations that are international in their fame, where people leave them hundreds of millions of dollars a year. They don't need the support of a community, but virtually every other community of any size has to support the arts in order to make them happen. It's seed money. And in this particular community, it brings in, frankly, a lot of tourism dollars. It is one of the reasons a lot of people choose to live here in the first place. I don't think we need to go crazy with funding it, but I do think we need to increase it a little bit, because to be sitting at 0% for 5, 6, 7 years in a row, I think is kind of disrespectful. And I don't think it truly reflects where the people are going. I mean, we have one of the biggest public school orchestra programs in the entire world. Obviously, people are, they care about that things. I just think it's time to address that and increase it. So I'd say somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 additional to make up some of this lack of funding over the last decade would be a good starting place. And like I do say, the statute-funded groups, the city band, the city orchestra, the city choir, the ranger band, which is, I'm glad to see the Range Days Rodeo is calling itself the Range Days again. That's where that name came from. I think those groups need to receive a little bit of support. Several of them go ahead and do additional fundraising. The symphony, goes ahead, it only represents like 12% of their budget, but gives them the seed money to exist. In the case of the municipal band, which has been around now, it's the 105th season, I believe, it's 100% of the budget. So it's really a recreational activity for the citizens, provides 9 concerts every summer, and if you've been to the park, they're very well attended. And so it's something that's a gift back to the citizens, and I think it's money well spent. So I just think, as a reflection of our appreciation for these groups and our respect for what they bring to the community, in particular in changing the quality of life of this particular town, we need to show it in our budget as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Seeing nobody else in queue, let's move on to item number 2. To take the CPI, we need to take a formal vote on it. Approve Resolution 2022-074 of intent to take the statutory authorized increase in property tax revenue as part of the annual appropriation ordinance for the 2023 fiscal year. Motion to approve by Evans, second by Jones. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. Item 3, first reading, Ordinance 6550 regarding fiscal year 2023 appropriation ordinance. From lots of the comments tonight, it sounds like maybe we're not ready to vote on this, and we should move it to the next budget hearing.
If I might request that you approve first reading as is. If you have any changes that you want to vote on tonight, we get that in for the second reading, but we can also have another budget hearing before the second reading. That's typically at the first meeting in September, which would be the 6th, I believe. So if we have more meetings between now and then, we can still make changes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Armstrong to approve, second by Evans. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Mr. Jones, you wanted to jump in there? Sorry, I didn't catch you before I started that.
Well, I'm just, if we want to make a motion, if I may, to the finance director, please. If we want to make a motion to make a change, do we do that tonight? Or, I mean, Mr. Evans has talked about suggestion for a change in that number, but I don't, without a motion, that probably isn't going to happen. So is that something that we need to do if we want to see that happen?
At some point, you will need to do that, but you will also have to identify a funding source or where we're taking it from the budget. Mr. Evans and I had that conversation previously about changing the budget, and there are two ways to change the budget. Either we come up with a funding source to offset that expense, or you reduce a budget elsewhere to offset that additional expense. So this would allow for some time to think about it, some time to look at things, to figure out what that funding source might be or that reduction elsewhere. You could make the motion now, you can make it at another budget hearing, you can make it at the second reading before the second reading is approved. There's ample opportunity between now and that second reading being final that you can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Evans?
Well, I did mention this earlier, that I do think it's important that creating that staff position comes from us, and I don't know the legal way we do it, how we create that, so we'll have to talk to our legal department, I suppose, to make sure it sounds kosher and legitimate, that it's starting here with the council and it's not the mayor, goosing his own salary. And so I guess we just need to have some discussion about how any of these increases happen. And the state requires us to have a zero balance, right? A balanced budget.
Yes, we are required to have a balanced budget.
And so our projected budget comes from what sort of estimates? I mean, where do we get those? Just
the revenue estimates are based on historical information and economics at the time that the different departments are looking at those revenue sources. The expenditures are also based on historic, plus you take into account inflation and any new things that they may need. So they're usually fairly close to being accurate.
but it could vary slightly up or down by anywhere, $200, $300, $400,000 up or down, right?
Probably about more like 2 to 3% usually.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Jones, another comment?
Thank you, I'll be brief. So if we want to make, next time we meet, a motion to increase the arts budget to $125,000, for example, that would have to include in the motion the one we want to reduce to offset that?
Correct. You'd have to reduce Joel Andine's salary by X amount of dollars. For example.
She just said no.
Or generate an alternative funding source.
Oh, sorry, Pauline, didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Okay. But that has to be included in the motion, right? Because I've had my hand slapped on that before, and I'm out of hands to slap, so I want to get that right. Watch it. Thank you.
Heidi, did you record the motion to approve item 3? We're good there? Item number 4, discussion on future budget meeting dates.
I'd like to propose having a second budget hearing 2 weeks from today so everybody can attend.
That would be August 31st, 5:30, Ms. Armstrong?
Unless somebody has a different or another idea.
August 31st. Second by Mr. Jones? Seeing no discussion, all in...
May I just,
Oh.
sorry. Typically, the second reading of the ordinance would go to Legal and Finance Committee that day. So I'm not sure if you want to have it at that day or not. I was also going to see if I can find the outcome of the survey I did to see what kind of attendance we might have there. So if you can give me just a second.
Correct, it's in preparation for the first meeting of September, though.
almost there. Hang on a second. Computer's slow, sorry.
Laura, would Monday the 31st be an acceptable day to change your motion to? Oh, the 29th, I'm sorry.
Not available Monday.
I'm sorry, you said Monday the 31st?
Excuse me, Monday the 29th.
Sure, that's fine. I'm sorry, I can't hear.
The seconder is okay with that motion? Going to delay the vote for a second while Pauline looks.
And that one was not given at, I don't believe was given as an option. Double check here.
So
No,
is there any
it
known
was.
issues for my colleagues
It-
for the 29th, Monday?
1, 2. Only 3 council members indicated they were available that night.
Nobody sitting up here has any objection to it, though, at this time. So the motion on the floor is to have the second budget hearing on Monday, the 29th at 5:30 PM. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Evans, second by Jones. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And we're adjourned.